It's LGBT History Month. Let's have a little reflect. My name's Misty Chance and my pronouns for everyday life are he and him. Of course, when I'm in costume, I do prefer she. I have a little story from quite a few years ago. I was in my late teens, around about 19. I was brought up in a very small town in the north of the UK called Nelson, which is very, very close to Burnley. I'd finished work one day and I was in the queue for the bus because I used to ride buses back then. And some lad, I think he was sort of young-ish, I'm not too sure, because when you're brought up in the Burnley area, you tend not to make eye contact with some of the younger ones, especially if you're slightly effeminate, which I may have been. He stopped at my position in the queue and hawked up this, like, from the pits of hell. Sorry, if you're eating, I do apologise. The biggest phlegm glob and then just spat it straight in the side of my face. I don't even know why I'm laughing about it. But the lady that was stood in front of me in the queue sort of looked around but then just put her back to me almost instantly. And I looked around to see who was behind me. It was a little old lady, bless her, who just sort of put her head down. The lad just continued to walk on and threw some jibe back. I think it might have been queer, which is quite weird because now we own that again. I crossed over the bus station and jumped into the queue for the X43. So rather than go home, I headed straight to Manchester. And I phoned my boyfriend at the time, who was in work, and said, I am sat at the back of one of the bars on Canal Street with a gin and tonic, and I ain't coming back. Of course he come and got me and dragged me back kicking and screaming, but that was the moment that I decided I was going to get the hell out of there. I very rarely think about the assailant when I reminisce about that experience. I think about the person that was stood in front of me in the queue and the person that was stood behind me in the queue. And what it highlights is how important it is to be an ally. I went travelling after that for a little while, but I never quite settled back into that town. Hence my Manchester Queen status, which I'm very, very proud of. And thankfully, times up there in that little northern town have changed, and they needed to. Do I have any advice for LGBT people living in the modern world? Well, I would say what you should do is reflect for a start, look back on our successes over the last 40 years, through things like gay marriage and equality in the workplace, all these sorts of things that we take for granted these days. And perhaps it was Morgan Freeman commenting on how we get past racism. Those philosophies could work here. Basically, he said, stop banging on about it. Once we stop talking about it, maybe it will all become normalised. I'm saying that whilst I'm sat here banging on about it. However, just reflect and pay tribute to everybody that's got us here to where we are today. Even though we do have a little way to go, certainly in this country, the UK, things are getting better and they're as good as we could have ever hoped for 40 years ago. So much respect to everybody that came before and the work that's already been done.